Well, good afternoon, everyone. As you know, the Democrats stalled a supplemental appropriation bill which would provide assistance for a variety of different disasters, not only in the South, but more recently in the Midwest. And I'm not sure what their next step is, but having stopped that bill, we'll need to have additional discussions because no action is not an option. Then we moved on to the consideration of a standing order to deal with the obstruction and really almost chaos we have on the executive calendar, which, as we have all said before, is reached an unprecedented level. In the last Congress, I had to file cloture in order to advance a nomination 128 times. You can go back to the last 6 presidents, 6 of them, and in the first 2 years, the majority leader of whichever party cumulatively, all of them together, only had to file cloture to advance a nomination 24 times. This is completely and totally unacceptable. And if we don't stop this behavior now, it'll become the norm. And the next time my party is in the minority in the Senate and there's a Democratic president, I'll have members saying, well, why should we be cooperative? This is the way things are done these days. So it needs to stop. We've made a major effort by going through the regular order, reporting this standing order out of the Rules Committee. Democrats are whispering in our ear privately. They'd be more than happy to do it, provided it takes effect in January of 2021. They know this is meritorious, but the leader seems to be dug in against doing this. So we'll be dealing with that issue this afternoon and tomorrow and through the balance of the week and working to get to a place where we can fix this problem. With that, let me turn to our colleagues.
In terms of this historic obstruction with nominations, the Democrats seem to be doing everything they can to stop and to stall and to slow down the process. So I'm going to tell you the story about one nominee, John Ryder. John was nominated by the president to be on the Tennessee Valley Authority. It's a non-controversial position. He's a non-controversial nominee, and it's a part-time position. His nomination, from the day he was nominated, the nomination came to the Senate till the day he was confirmed, was 388 days. It's not over a year. His nomination was sent to the Environment and Public Works Committee that I chair. We had a hearing. He was voted out by voice vote. Went to the Senate, and that's where the obstruction by the Senate Democrats began. He was voted out in March of 2018. So it went from the spring to the summer to the fall to winter. No action. The blockade continued. At the end of the Congress, his nomination was returned to the White House. The president nominated him again in January for the part-time, non-controversial TVA. What happened then? Back to committee, back to the process, voted out on voice vote. Once again, not one vote in opposition. Goes to the Senate, and up comes the blockade again to the point that the leader had to file cloture on the nomination. Only then did the Democrats relent. And then it was a voice vote. So he was confirmed, never having one vote against him, but it took 388 days. That's the history of this level of obstruction that we're dealing with. Something has to give, and if the Democrats don't want to cooperate, it's time to take the action that's necessary to get the Senate moving again.
So obviously on this same topic, in the first 2 years of the Obama administration, the majority leader, Senator Reid, had to file cloture 12 times to advance nominations. We didn't think that was fair. They didn't think it was fair. 78 senators in the third year of the Obama administration, including right at half of the Republicans, said, no, this is not a fair way to do this. Let's put this standing order in place. The rule we're voting on today is very nearly the exact same rule that was voted on then. 12 efforts to block nominees by our side. We were willing to look at that and say, this is not the way to do business. Let's change that. 128 efforts to block nominees on their side. Until 2003, the history of the Senate was never to use these procedural blockades to slow people down. The person Senator Barrasso just mentioned and dozens of others that have been up here for over a year, out of committee for over a year, never having had a vote on the floor. If we don't stop this, eventually people will be unwilling to even be considered to serve. Why would you want to be nominated if you never get voted on? Why would you want to be nominated if it takes years before you get to do a job that at the outside may only last the rest of one presidential term? This does need to stop. Democrats know it needs to stop. We intend to stop this abuse of the rules this week.
Words really can't express my disappointment in the Democrats blocking the supplemental disaster package yesterday that was put forward by Chairman Shelby. Folks in Iowa have lost their businesses. They have lost their homes. Our communities have lost their infrastructure. Livestock gone, grain gone. It is devastating and it is heartbreaking. So the package that was put forward yesterday was the most comprehensive package available. It covered not only the disasters in Iowa with the flooding and across the Midwest, but it included all of the other disasters from 2018. So again, the most comprehensive, far-reaching disaster supplemental package, and it was blocked by my colleagues across the aisle. Shame on them. A number of my Democratic colleagues have been finding their way all across Iowa, telling Iowans how important they are to them as the presidential caucuses are nearing. And yet they voted to block the very funding that would help these families out. So again, I am disappointed in the partisan politics that are being played with the livelihoods of the folks back home in Iowa, all across the Midwest, the Carolinas, and our southern states that have all received damage in some of these terrible natural disasters. So I hope that some of them will change their minds. They'll rejoin us and we can vote again on the disaster supplemental package that will help these families out. I want to take the time as well. We've spoken extensively today on the obstruction of the nominations, and I do want to thank Senators Blunt and Langford for really working very hard and trying to convince a number of our colleagues to join us on this issue and help move some of these nominations. So with that, I am encouraging again, colleagues across the aisle, please step up and do the right thing. Thank you.
It's been a common refrain among a number of my Democratic colleagues over the last couple of years that this president has failed to fully staff up his administration. And in the same breath, it is so many of these same Democratic senators who are obstructing the president from moving his nominees forward. Now, this is uncommon. This is incredibly uncommon. For a minority party to be preventing a duly elected president of the United States from staffing up his administration. This is a very bad precedent. Folks back home are paying attention to a procedural issue, which normally does not catch much attention. But some examples in the Northern District of Indiana. We have a couple of district court judges who have been waiting for their confirmation for a number of months now. Holly Brady out of Fort Wayne was in a bipartisan fashion with the support of Senator Joe Donnelly. He was supported. She was voted out of committee, and she's waiting on a vote. She's been waiting for 1 year. Damon Lichty from South Bend from the same district also had bipartisan support. He's been waiting 9 months. We have an ambassador from the state of Indiana, Kip Tom. I hope he is ultimately confirmed as ambassador for the United Nations Agencies on Food and Agriculture. Folks, this is the ambassador who walks point with respect to famines, There's just one famine. It involves 20 million people on the brink of starvation in the country of Yemen, but we are unrepresented as a country when it comes to this humanitarian crisis because of obstructionism in the United States Senate. This needs to end, and it will end very soon.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between you, President, on what he wants to do on health care and where you see the health care debate standing right now?
Yeah, not any longer. We had a good conversation yesterday afternoon, and I pointed out to him the Senate Republicans' view on dealing with comprehensive health care reform with the Democratic House of Representatives, that I was fine with Senator Alexander and Senator Grassley working on prescription drug pricing and other issues that are not a comprehensive effort to revisit the issue that we had the opportunity to address last Congress and were unable to do so. So I made it clear to him we were not going to be doing that in the Senate. He did say, as he later tweeted, he accepted that, and that he would be developing a plan that he would take to the American people during the 2020 campaign and suggest that that would be what he would be advocating in a second term if there were a Republican Congress. So we don't have a misunderstanding about that. We'll not be doing comprehensive in the Senate.
Mr. Leader, if the courts strike down the ACA and there is no alternative from Congress, what happens then?
Well, I don't think that's anytime soon. It's in the court system. Nobody's lost a policy over it. A pre-existing condition which we all support. Every single member of the Senate and both parties is still in place. And there's no point in pushing a panic button. The court system takes a long time to resolve these issues.
Have you urged the President not to urge the Justice Department to strike down the whole law?
I didn't give any advice about that. I don't think any of these policies are in any immediate danger anyway.
Mr. Leader?
Yeah.
The President has discussed closing the border with Mexico in the process of fraud or security considerations. Would Congress do anything in response if he did that?
Well, we certainly have a crisis at the border. I think the President's right about that. Closing down the border would have potentially catastrophic economic impact on our country, and I would hope we would not be doing that sort of thing.
Leader McConnell, on the rules change, are you negotiating just with Schumer or other Democrats, and why not go farther, maybe lower the post-cloture time for circuit court noms or cabinet-level nominees? I mean, did you think about going farther with the rules?
Well, Senator Blunt and Senator Langford have had discussions with a number of rank-and-file members of the Democratic Conference about the issue we're addressing here. And even though there's some interest among the rank and file, the Democratic leader and I had a conversation last week. He's not interested in that. With regard to the other issues you're raising, we're not addressing that in this rules change. This only affects district judges and sub-cabinet appointees. And as Senator Blunt pointed out, it is very, very similar to what 19 Republicans joined with all Democrats to provide to President Obama in the 5th year of his presidency at the beginning of the second term. Unfortunately, it seems that standing order was only for one Congress. So we're proposing to essentially go back to that, which we supported. 78 members of the Senate supported it, and do it on a permanent basis so it will benefit whoever wins the next election. But in the meantime, as we've pointed out repeatedly over and over and over again, we've got a crisis right now with this attempt to basically keep this administration from functioning. After all, the president won the election. He's entitled to have his own team in place, and as Senator Blunt and others have pointed out, at this point, many of these non-judicial sub-cabinet people will only be there for a year and a half during this remainder of this term, should the president not be successful in 2020. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.